Welcome to Para Ser Legal to Be Legal, where we talk to you about what's new and hot in immigration today. My name is Andres Mejer. I'm a published author, public speaker, and immigration attorney. What do we got for you? We have 5 changes that will rock your world in 2020.
Calificas para ser legal, quieres saber, solo llama al abogado Andres Mejer.
Number 1, prices for immigration are going up. So, for any of you that have listened to this program for any length of time, you know that in 2017, Trump increased prices by 20-30%. In some cases were significantly high, but it's the first time that prices had gone up in 13 years, so people didn't make as much a fuss of it. And they were able to document what the reasons for it were in the increased cost. Now, USCIS is completely self-funded. That means they don't get a single tax dollar that you paid to the federal government. They get all of the revenue from fees that you paid for petitions. Having said that, last year, Trump administration said, hey, we're going to change prices, and we're going to change it by a lot. In some cases, we're going to double some of those fees. So on average, it's 21%, but for a lot of them, it is really a lot more than 21%. So citizenship, you're going to go from $725 to $1,170. Green card application, doesn't matter if it's from a family-based petition, employment-based petition, or humanitarian reasons, you're going to go from $1,760 to $2,750. Actually, let me take that back. That is predominantly for a family-based petition, but for others, it could be even more. Your DACA renewal goes from $495 to $765. Your employment authorization goes up from $410 to $490. And fee waivers are routinely being denied. Fee waivers where you're saying, listen, immigration, for the following reasons, I really can't afford to pay for these filing fees, but please process my application for my citizenship anyway. Maybe I'm disabled, maybe I get government assistance, maybe I'm unemployed, whatever the circumstances are. Well, those are routinely being denied now, and government is trying to completely prevent you from filing it in the first place. They want to say denied, 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 denied. They don't even want to look at it. They just want to deny it as quickly as possible. Number 2, citizenship test is getting harder, will be more expensive, and it's easier to deny you for grounds of immorality. Now, during fiscal year 2019, you remember that fiscal year for immigration goes from the end of September to the beginning of October. So for 2019, USCIS approved over 834,000 green card citizenship applications from legal permanent residents. That's an 11-year high. You wonder why? The Trump administration wants to deny you. The Trump administration doesn't want you to come in. They want to deport you as easy, more and more, no matter what, no matter how long you've been here. I mean, just look at what they did to DACA, look at what they did to TPS holders that have been here 10, 15 years and have kids and have homes and jobs, and they want to deny all of that and send them all home. So people are afraid, and those that qualify are applying, and they're applying in record numbers, as they should. After December 20th, green card holders who want to apply for citizenship are going to be getting a harder test. What does that mean? We don't know. We haven't seen it, but it's getting harder. How much harder? Again, haven't seen the questions, hard to say. But there's a requirement today for most people that you have to read, write, and speak basic English. You also have to have basic understanding of U.S. history and government. They call it civics. USCIS has advised that they're going to make it harder, but we haven't seen the questions. Again, we know they want to make it more expensive. We know they want to deny more petitions, so making the test harder is the logical outgrowth of that. So is the next one. They're going to expand the reasons why they're going to deny your petition. Now, I've said this in the past, every single immigration petition has a requirement that you're a good moral person. Well, it's usually proven in the negative, meaning I haven't done bad things. So because I haven't done bad things, I'm a good person. If I've done bad things, I'm not a good person. Well, this administration is expanding the list that says you're not a good person. In other words, expanding the things that convict you. And of convictions that could happen to you. And let me tell you, there's a lot of them. When you're applying for citizenship, there's a look back period. So what immigration does is says, first, is there anything in your past, like a conviction, that would completely disqualify you? For example, you're an axe murderer. You served 20 years, but hey, you lied about your name and you then got your citizenship under the new name. No, they're gonna catch up that, you're gonna get disqualified and you're gonna get deported. So what we're talking about here is crimes that can disqualify you. One or more crimes of moral turpitude. That isn't new, but again, they're expanding what is a crime of moral turpitude. They're defining it very expansively, and it's not really defined. It's conduct that's immoral. It could be shoplifting, a $5 offense, and all of a sudden you're disqualified for one petty offense. So immigration looks anything in your past that disqualifies you, number one. Number two, how did you get your green card? Did you get it lawfully? Did you lie? Did immigration make a mistake? Were you lawfully admitted? In other words, were you admitted and no mistake was made, either by you or by the government? Because it doesn't matter who makes the mistake, the government's gonna blame you. So that's a second catch-all that they have to disqualify your citizenship application. The third is, are you a good moral person during the look-back period? So if I filed in January 1st, 2020, the look-back period is usually 5 years, or from January 1st, 2015, unless I got my green card based on marriage to my spouse, which I didn't. I got it thanks to Ronald Reagan, but maybe you did. So in that case, the look-back period is only 3 years. So during the look-back period, is there something that makes me an immoral person, like a conviction for immoral conduct like shoplifting? Now, if I was convicted of shoplifting 20 years ago, and afterwards I got my green card, and now I'm applying for my citizenship, that's not going to disqualify me. It's well past the look-back period. If you were convicted of 2 or more offenses which combined resulted in 5 or more years in jail, except for political offenses. So, we're not saying you were convicted of one offense and that resulted in more than 5 years. That's clear, automatic disqualified. No, here we're talking about there's multiple convictions. None of them were significant, but in the totality, you served or could have served more than 5 years in jail. Guess what? You're not a good moral person. You're convicted of a controlled substance, drug. It's pretty much everything except for marijuana less than 30 grams. Any other drug, you're disqualified. You're not a good moral person. And depending on what it is, you're also going to be placed in deportation proceedings and deported. Now, if you're in jail, one offense, more than 180 days during the last 3 or 5 years during the look-back period, automatically not a good moral person. You gave false testimony under oath. In other words, you perjured yourself. Not a good moral person. Any prostitution offense. That could be you were engaged in prostitution, you attempted to procure prostitution, you tried to bring a prostitute from abroad, or you received proceeds from prostitution, meaning you pimped someone out. Any one of those, you're not a good moral person. So let's say I'm a green card holder and I have a child, I have 2, Noemi and Marcelo, but let's assume they're not in the United States and they were not born here. And something happens and I need to get them here as quickly as possible. So I pay a coyote to bring them across. They're caught at the border. I get them released. I then file for them. They're in removal proceedings. I'm now going for my citizenship. And the government's going to say, you smuggled somebody. Now, I was not accused of the crime. I was not convicted of the crime. But the officer could have enough information to find that I in fact did that. Like, for example, they asked me at my citizenship ceremony, at my citizenship interview, and I foolishly admit to having done it because I didn't have an attorney. Oops. Now I disqualified myself. Not a good thing. Polygamy. So that's where I have more than one wife at the same time. Oops. I'm not sure why anybody would actually want that. For those of you that don't know, I happen to work with my wife. So she's also an attorney. We met in law school. I mean, who else is going to put up with us attorneys, right? So she's my life partner and business partner. So we're all good. No polygamy here. Gambling offense. 2 or more gambling offenses or someone that receives a benefit from illegal gambling automatically disqualified. Habitual drunkard. No, I'm not talking about you had a bad day, you went to a bar, you had a drink and you went home drunk. I'm not talking about that. Habitual drunkard is when you're regularly drunk. When you have to subscribe yourself to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, it doesn't mean you can't rehabilitate yourself. It doesn't mean you can't show that you're a different person, but it's that much harder during the look back period now than it ever was before. 2 or more convictions for DUI. I've spoken about this in the past. It's going to keep on coming back. I told you in October when the government made a decision that if you're in removal and you're filing for certain relief, if you have 2 or more convictions for a DUI, you're disqualified. I told you it's going to come back to every single immigration petition. And it is. Here we are for citizenship. Later on, we'll be saying the same thing for asylum. We've talked about it in a family-based petition context. If you have 2 or more DUIs, you're screwed. Unless you can show you're a different person, it was a really long time ago, and you're otherwise deserving. And I gotta tell you, 2 or more DUIs in this climate, it's tough. Failure to support your dependents. So, like I said, I have 2 kids. I'm married, but let's say we're separated, or let's say we, God forbid, we get divorced, and the judge says I have to pay $1,000 a month. Chances are I'm gonna have to pay a lot more than that. But let's imagine, for the purpose of the conversation, I only have to pay $1,000 a month, and I fall behind on my payments. I bounced a check. I lost my job. It took me a couple months to find a new job. I wasn't able to pay my mortgage or anything else, including my child support. Well, the failure to do that means I'm not a good person. I'm not a good moral person because I'm not taking care of my kids, and every parent should take care of their kids. So why should the government give me citizenship? Adultery. That's an extramarital affair. Tends to destroy existing marriages unless there's extenuating circumstances. How does that happen? Well, sometimes, when you're applying for citizenship, it asks you who your kids are, and marriages and divorces. And guess what? If you have a child out of wedlock when you're married, that's adultery. That could be a basis to deny your citizenship. And the last one, you gotta love this, unlawful act that adversely reflects upon your good moral character. What on earth does that mean? We have no clue. I could drive a truck through that definition. It could literally fit anything. That is so overbroad, it's absurd. So, that likely will be found unconstitutional, but that will take months or years for that to happen. In the meantime, if you were arrested for any reason ever, make sure you speak to an attorney, not just any attorney, but an immigration attorney who you trust, not just somebody that you Googled. Look them up, meet with them, ask questions, make sure that they treat you right. See how you feel after meeting with the staff, with the attorney. Do they answer your questions? Do they call you back? Are they proactive? Have they written a book? Are they informing you on this program? Who are they? What are they about? But meet with somebody. It doesn't have to be with us. Look, you might be in Arizona, Texas, Florida, who knows? Most of our clients are in New Jersey, but we have many that come from as far away as Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and New York for our services. But if you're in Nebraska, you might want to find somebody more local, which I understand. Just talk to somebody. Do not file a petition of any kind in this climate without first consulting with a qualified immigration attorney, because you will regret it. Number 3, more forms you'll be able to file electronically. Now, don't get excited. Yes, filing electronic forms sounds great. I can just go on the website, press a couple of buttons, and off I'm going. There are very few that are available, number 1. Number 2, you still have to provide the supporting documents, which at the end of the day, it's all about the documents. What documents do you need, and how do you prove it? Not so much answering questions, but hey, if you answer a question incorrectly, there's no such thing as a mistake. It's the truth coming out to light. So be very careful. In fiscal year 2019, there were over 1,214,300 applications filed electronically. That's 10% more than the year before. 100,242. That was in 2018. So USCIS added 3 forms for a total of 8 that can be filed online. Citizenship based on parentage, that's N600. Change of status, I-539. You want to extend your visa to stay more time, or you want to change it from a student to a tourist or vice versa. That's Form I-539. Replace your green card, Form I-90. Travel document, I-131A. You want your citizenship was denied, and you want to request a hearing, Form N-336. And citizenship, N-400. Until the system is such that you can file forms electronically and upload all the supporting documents, I don't recommend you do this. But it's in some things you can. Some things that are very simple. For example, work authorization. You already have an approved petition and you wouldn't be getting it. But asylum, green card application, travel permanent, those are the ones that are coming. The I-45, I-765, the I-131, I-129, the I-589. Those are really substantive petitions where the documents are incredibly important. And there are what I call gotcha questions. Things like they ask you, hey, have you ever worked without permission? They want you to say no. Meanwhile, they're asking you for your tax returns for the past 3 years. Guess what? If you had income, chances are you worked. And now you just lied and committed fraud. I'm not trying to beat you over the head with this information. I just see too many people, good people, that had good petitions and had a good chance of success that screwed it up, and their petition was not your average run-of-the-mill petition. It was really unusual, and there was a characteristic, and because of it, they're now in removal proceedings. Don't let it happen to you. Just be informed. Number 4, fourth change coming in 2020, public charge. Look, I've talked about this before. I spoke about the litigation that's been ongoing, but the change is some of the litigation, some of those injunctions have been overturned. So what's the public charge? Public charge is not new. It's been around since the 19th century. This is where the principle behind it is, if I U.S. government are going to bring you immigrant and allow you to come into the United States, I don't want to support you. So you need to prove to me that you can support yourself. If you can't, you'll become a public charge. So they created a definition which says, hey, if you've had 12 or more points in the last 3 years, you are inadmissible because of this public charge. Now, they created this single duration standard, which also is new. So let's say I lost my job, and because of it, I couldn't pay my mortgage. I couldn't feed my children. I couldn't, my mortgage, my rent. So they gave me food stamps, they gave me housing assistance, and they gave me, maybe unemployment benefits usually doesn't count on that. But they gave me 3 different benefits. Every month that I get it, that's 3 points. If I have 4 months, that's 12, disqualified for 3 years. But let's say I only had it for 2, and then I found a job and I was able to get off it, fantastic. It helped me only for a little bit of time. Hey, now the government will be able to say, you know what? We think you might need it in the future again, and because of it, you're inadmissible. There's been litigation. October 2019, 4 federal judges stopped the implementation of this new rule. Each of them granted a preliminary injunction. All of them stopped Department of Homeland Security from implementing this new rule. But the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, you got that right, 9th Circuit granted a stay of the preliminary injunction. So they stopped the stopping of the implementation. 4 days later, Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit did the same thing. So the 9th Circuit did it for the Eastern District of Washington, not District of Columbia. I'm talking about the state of Washington, and for the District of California. And the 4th Circuit did it for the District of Maryland. So there are still 2 courts that have stopped it completely, and that's Southern District of New York, the Northern District of Illinois. That will be resolved in 2020, likely in some fashion. There will likely be a circuit court split, and it will likely go to the Supreme Court. But only time will tell. And I want to talk about the 5th, and it's a big one. New obstacles for asylum seekers. 1, they don't want you to get work authorization, and 2, they don't want you to qualify for asylum. So, work authorization. They want you to wait longer. They want you to wait for a whole year in the U.S. before you can file for citizenship. When you came legally, appropriately, and requested asylum, they want you to wait a year. It's absurd. They want to deny work permits to anyone that entered illegally. Who cares what the law says? The law actually says if you filed for asylum. It makes no distinction to whether you had legal entry or illegal entry. You could have come in as a tourist and overstayed, or come as a tourist and applied for asylum, or you could have entered illegally and then came in and applied for asylum. It doesn't matter under the law, but this administration wants to make a difference and say illegal, disqualified from work authorization. Now, if they deny you your asylum, they want to be able to deny your work authorization immediately as of that date. There's a requirement that when you file for work authorization for asylum, they have to respond in 30 days. Do they do it? No, but they're supposed to. They want to remove that requirement also. They want to make your life harder, more expensive, but they don't want take on any responsibility for themselves. Now, the last one's a doozy, so pay attention for this. We've talked lots about how they're making it harder to file for asylum. So where you file, how you file, when you came, how you came, making you wait in Mexico, making you file for asylum in other countries. Now, even if you get through all of that, they want to be able to deny you based on, in some cases, not even a conviction of a crime, but a suspicion of a crime. So, asylum, if you meet the requirements, in simple, you fear persecution for a protected reason. It's more complicated than that, but for purpose of conversation, you're afraid to go back to your country, and it's for a reason the law protects. We'll simplify it just for this purpose. You could still be disqualified if you were convicted of a particularly serious crime. Well, this administration wants to take that definition of particular serious crime and expand it massively. So I'm going to talk about some of them. Any conviction for an offense with a possible jail sentence of more than 1 year. So, domestic violence, or let's say a DUI that resulted in an injury to somebody else, but the judge, for extenuating circumstances, didn't give me any jail time. Could have given me 5 years, but gave me probation instead and no jail. Guess what? Disqualified for asylum. Any second conviction for a DUI. Told you this was coming. You're convicted of a DUI, 2 or more, you're gonna be disqualified for almost anything. Now, certain circumstances where immigration official suspects that you committed domestic battery, basically domestic violence. Example. I'm in an altercation with my wife. She calls the police, or somebody calls the police. Police comes in. I get arrested. She says she's afraid. And then, the next day she realized, what? She's not really afraid. And she wants to withdraw. Now, she doesn't want to give testimony against me. The charges get dismissed. We show up for my asylum hearing, and the officer says, "Hey, you did this, right?" If the officer believes I did it, even though I wasn't convicted, I'm now disqualified for asylum for a particular serious crime that I was not even convicted of. Almost all convictions, including a controlled substance, that's not new, except for a single amount of marijuana under 30 grams. So, particular serious crime is being expanded to unheard of situations, even if they're not particularly serious. Asylum officers are also supposed to consider extenuating circumstances. Nope, department wants to remove that altogether. These draconian new rules, if the proposed rules go into effect, immigration officials will not consider if a court vacates a conviction. You heard that right. You were convicted. You proved to the court that conviction was unjust, and immigration is going to ignore the fact that it was unjust and just focus on the conviction. Folks, times are tough for immigrants. The roads are coming in on every scenario, and asylum in particular. For the past decade, the majority of immigration is not from South America. It's from Southeast Asia, China, India. That's where the majority of immigrants are coming from. They're not coming from South America. But all of these focus is on South America and Central America. It's unfortunate, but it's the world that we live in. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Andres Mejer. If you want to stay current on the hottest immigration news, subscribe to our channel. Give us a call. We'll see if you qualify for a no-cost consultation. Until next time.